Hi, this is Bonnie, and we're back for Block 9 of our year-long Block of the Month Club. This block that you are creating today is a 10-inch block, so you will need to remember that you'll need to add that 1.5-inch sashing all the way around the block to make it a 12.5-inch finished block. The pattern that we're using today is called Mrs. Keller's 9-patch quilting block, the quilt block. Now, a normal 9-patch quilt, if you remember, is when you take, when you take and you have a patch that has 9 blocks, period. Well, this one takes that in a very small version, and it puts very plain fabric around it and then very fancy corners. Now this pattern will be posted to the website, to the calendar, and so you can download it. So let's go ahead and get started. Now this is the finished block without the 9-inch or without the 1.5-inch borders all around. I wanted you to see it finished before I added the borders this time. So you see, here's our 9-patch right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A very small 9-patch. You traditionally have seen this 9-patch, but now we've added these flying geese side pieces, and we've added a half triangle square in the corner. Very simple to do. We'll do it step by step and it will make sense. So that is our finished block. Here is all of our pieces put together, and let me do it this way. Here's all of our pieces put together. And some I have assembled, some I have not, but each section is individualized. The first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to do a review on how to do the half square triangles that make up these corners. So here is the piece that I would have to make the 2 corner sections. Now, if you remember, in a half square triangle, let me tip this down so you can see. In a half square triangle, you do your 2 3-inch blocks, and that's what you have for this. And then you make a line, and I use a pencil, or you can use quilting pencils. I found that just a regular number 2 will work fine. And if you launder the quilt, it's going to wash out. It will not bleed out and show when your quilt is completed. So this line, this diagonal line, is the line that you run the presser foot of your machine along. A presser foot has, from the center of the presser foot and the needle, to the right or to the left, it's 1/4 of an inch. And that's what we need to do, is make that 1/4 of an inch seam. So I'm going to line my presser foot up along the line, and I'm going to stitch down, and that's going to create our first line of stitching. Now, remember I said I use a very neutral color, and you can see how that blends right into the fabric. And then I will turn my piece around, and I'm going to stitch, put my presser foot along the line and stitch the 1/4 of an inch on the other side. Now that I have those 2 sewn together, now I'm going to take scissors and I'm going to clip down the line up line, not the stitching lines, but the diagonal line that you drew. Once that is done, then you're going to open up your pieces, and you will have a piece here, and you will have a piece here, and that's going to be our 2 corner pieces to match the 2 that we already have. So when I press them. I'm going to press them. I'm going to trim that, make sure it's nice and 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to press it light side toward dark side. And then again, you're going to have to follow your pattern to make sure that you have all of your little light parts pointing in the correct direction. So that's the half square triangle for your corners. The next thing that we'll work on is our flying geese. Now, this flying goose is different because it has an elongated center part. Always before our flying geese have come to a sharp point and come out. This has an elongated center. So let me just find my sample one here. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to pull this off. And so the first thing you're going to have, and you're going to cut this a little differently, it's going to be larger. This is a 2.5 by 6.5 inch rectangle. For our normal flying geese, we cut it 2.5 by 4.5. This one, because we want it elongated, we are going to cut it 2.5 by 6.5. Once you have it cut, then you're going to take one of your rectangles, and again on this rectangle you're going to draw a diagonal line corner to corner, and then you will sew. This becomes not a cutting line but a sewing line. So you will sew right along that diagonal line. Once that is finished, then pull it back and make sure that all these little layers line up exactly. And then you'll know that you haven't cut or you haven't sewn in too far, or if you need to sew in a little further. Make sure they line up very nicely. Once you're sure that they line up nicely and you've made any adjustments you might need to adjust, then you're going to take your scissors and you're going to again cut off that extra fabric, leaving a 1/4 inch seam line. And from the stitching line to the fabric, it's 1/4 inch. And so now you will have your elongated flying goose. So I've got that one done, and let me just put this back on my board. When you go to assemble your pieces, the one thing that you're going to need to be sure to remember to do is to look at your pattern and make sure that these points go out and away from the center. If I were to take one of these, for example, let's just take this one, and I accidentally put it this way, completely changes the look of the square. But that's not to say, as I look at that after I did that, that might make an interesting block if they were all the same. I wouldn't want to mix and match. I would either want them all pointing out or all pointing in. So let me flip this one again. And put it back like it should be. So after you have your initial pieces sewn together, you have your corner pieces, your corner half square triangles, you have your elongated flying geese, you're going to have 4 corner pieces, you're going to have 4 flying geese, and then you're going to have the central 9-patch quilt block. So on this one, on this one you see this is 3 strips. The bottom 2, or the upper and bottom 1, are the same. And this one, I did this one a little bit different. Remember, I'm doing 3 of each square because I'm headed for a king-size quilt when I'm done. So I just decided to make this center square a different fabric, coordinates with it just a little different. On the original, I made the center the same as these flying geese that fly out. So you see, you can change the look by just changing out different fabrics in different places, but still keeping the same pattern and design. So after you have assembled all your pieces, you're going to put your pieces into rows. Now, this is, again, I'm going to have a top row, a bottom, and a bottom row, and this is the center row. The center row on this one is very wide. We're used to having all our little rows about the same width, but this one is very wide. So you see that I took and I sewed my 3 rows together, and there's my center 9 patch. Then I added a elongated flying goose to the outside with my point going out, This is my center row, very wide. Then I have my corner blocks, and again, I want to make sure that my flying goose is flying away from my 9 patch. So I put my 2 half square triangles on the ends of my flying goose, and then I have that corner done. You see, I have this flying away, flying away, flying away. Then when I am ready to put the other one on, again, I'm going to have it so that it's flying away, so they all fly away correctly. There we go. They're all flying away. Once that is done, then I'm ready to put the 3 rows together. Remember, you need to press your seams, and the better you press your seams, the more evenly you press your seams, the flatter your piece is, then it will make your pattern or your piece assemble so much smoother, and it will lay so much nicer. So I just made sure as I was pressing, I did hold my pieces up toward each other to make sure that I was going to press my seams so that the seams butted up against each other. And that way, when I go to assemble it and I press the entire thing, those seams will butt up against each other and make a nice smooth connection. So there we go. And that's what I did on this one. You see, I made sure that my seams, my iron kind of futzed around, and I got a new iron and I don't care for it. It's not a good iron for quilting. It's too large for one thing. And then for some reason, the vent holes on the bottom of the iron snags the fabric and you get this little wrinkly effect. So obviously I need to go and get a different iron that's going to give me a smoother ironing job. I think I'm finally going to invest in one of the very small quilter's irons, and that makes it so much easier to get all of these seams flat. Just haven't wanted to spend the money, but maybe it's time that I do, so I'm not so frustrated. So there we go. We have our rows ready to assemble. And when you do things step by step, piece by piece, you're going to end up with a very nice quilt block, very smooth. It's going to lay flat. When the time comes to quilt this quilt, whether you're going to tie it, quilt it yourself, or take it to a quilter to be done on a large quilting machine, the flatter your work is, the easier it's going to be to quilt. So again, we have our pattern, and it is called the Mrs. Keller's 9-patch quilt block. And you will find the directions for this on the website. There will be the link for you to go in and download the pattern and print it. Here it tells you you're going to do just all rectangles and squares this time, so it's going to be easy to assemble. what the directions said, just take your fabric and do a combination of the colors. They don't necessarily have to be the same color square in the same place on each section. You can play around. This, like this, a flying goose, I put a blue one in there. The rest are dark brown. And here I put a medium blue and a dark blue and brown on the edges. So again, I'm staying in my color family. Here we have the dark blue, and then we have the medium blue pattern. We have a dark print with larger flowers, with the smaller print with smaller flowers. Same color combination, just different sizes of flowers. And here's the medium blue. And then I did 2 burgundy and then 2 of the brown background flowers. I could have just done every single one a different color. I wanted to make sure that my outside colors would frame the block. I really like it when I sew that I create like a self-made mat or frame of the block. And here you see, because I have the dark corners, I have darks here, it holds the block in, it keeps the eye in instead of letting the eye travel out. So this will be a fun block to do. It is a simple block to do. It might look difficult, but it really is very simple to do, and I hope you will enjoy doing it. Next month, we'll do another block. It will be block 10 of our series, and I will talk a little bit more next month about adding borders and sashing. So I'm so glad you joined me today. Please come back in July and we will continue on. And I hope you're enjoying this quilting experience. It's really a lot of fun for me to do. So take care, and I will see you soon.